When we are doing overlay or flush fillers, whether it be for crown or sides, the process is very similar. In this kitchen, we can see that the overlay or flush fillers are being used for the top molding as well to the ceiling. We're not discussing the installation of the cabinets since that is a separate subject. But we are assuming that you have your cabinets installed and secured, and the gaps are now apparent. Here, these cabinets above the refrigerator are being installed and secured. And here we see the kitchen with that gap of approximately 1.5 inches above. One thing that you will need is a means of maintaining your flat crown or your overlay fillers in place. In this case, I've made something out of some scraps that accomplishes that task. The key to remember is that your overlay filler, or this top filler, needs to be held in a consistent relationship to the cabinet box. So the pieces that are holding our flat crown in place are maintaining the bottom edge of our flat crown the same level as the bottom or the inside of the cabinet. This helps us to be able to pull the measurement that we need in order to make sure that the varying distance to the ceiling is compensated for. So, in this situation, we have a measurement from the top of the cabinet to the ceiling of 1.5 inches. That distance of 1.5 inches is then marked on the flat crown, the top molding, we could say. We measure from the bottom edge of the flat crown up 1.5 inches and put a small mark with our pencil. Then, once the crown is being held in place, we adjust our compass or scribe so that it matches the distance from the ceiling to our pencil mark. Now we can run our scribe all along the length of this piece of trim. Now that we have our mark on the filler piece, we can take it over to our table saw or jigsaw if that's what you have available. In this situation, I am using the table saw without using the fence so that I can, what is termed, freehand cut on the table saw. If you feel anxious or unsafe in using the table saw in this way, then it's best to try to cut it as close as you can to the pencil mark with the fence, and then use a grinder, belt sander, or hand plane to take off the remainder up to the pencil line. Now that we have our filler prepared to go in place, we need to provide it with some means of securing it and to fill in any gaps to the cabinet. So in our case, we needed to create, we might call it an L or a return piece that will be fastened or glued to the filler and then will later be adjusted to fit in the space and then fastened to the cabinet. It is typically easier and more consistent to use a gauge block or some sort of a spacer instead of trying to use your tape measure all along your overlay filler to make sure that it ends up being flush to your doors or drawers. Here you see that I'm using a block that I have cut to 7/8 of an inch wide, which is the thickness of the doors in this project along with their door bumpers. By using this type of gauge block, the fillers will be exactly flush with the doors once everything is adjusted. Now we can actually fasten our filler to the cabinet. The piece that we glued or fastened to the back of our overlay filler can now be nailed using a 23 gauge pin nailer, brad nailer, or screws to our cabinet boxes. At this point, you can put your doors and your drawers back on, and you are complete with your filler project.